Good evening. Welcome to Chatham Township Committee meeting, February 14th, 2019. And happy Valentine's Day. And now the meeting called to order. Greg, the adequate notice was given.
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 4th, 2019. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 4th, 2019. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 4th, 2019.
Time for flag salute. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Ness?
Here.
Mrs. Swartz?
Here.
Mr. Ritter?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Selin?
Here. Thank you, Greg. And now, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Anyone second?
I would like to pull out resolution, which is number 12 on the consent agenda, authorizing the quotes for lawn care and athletic fields.
Okay.
Just for further discussion tonight?
Just
or-
for further discussion, yeah.
So, will you accept that amendment? I do accept an amendment. So, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
To approve that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved as amended. Okay, and now next item on the agenda, as you see, is the presentation by kids who won an award, STEM engineering competition. They're not here. We're just going to move forward, and if they show up, then we'll see if we can accommodate. And the reports, but before I get to reports, I want to congratulate our new township administrator, Bob Hoffman, for his first meeting tonight. And I don't think he knows what he's getting into. and so, okay. So that's
Still here.
good for you. And he came back 3 times already. So, and thank you, and good luck, and that's it. So reports, and let's start from here. Committeeman Ritter.
No report.
Mrs. Ward.
Really very quiet along the Western Front. There are some great things going on in our senior center. I'm happy to report the pickleball is taking off like crazy. It's an awesome activity for young seniors, more mature seniors, and seniors come in all ages now, and I'm sort of there now. So I fully appreciate the enhanced opportunities for physical activity that they have at the senior center. They'll be offering golf lessons and another whole host of programs going forward as we head into spring. So please keep an eye on the Chatham Seniors website. Additionally, as we all have been invited to our first responders captains dinners this year, just, as liaison to the fire companies in our town, I would just like to reiterate on behalf of all of us how proud we are of our first responders, our first aid squad, the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department, Green Village Volunteer Fire Department. To see these teams come together and celebrate their new officers every year is a real thrill, and it really is just a brief show of what a great team they are. So we are all abundantly grateful. We congratulate each one of them on their January captains and officers inaugurations. So really cheers to all of our first responders. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Tracy?
The Communications Committee has met. Again, we met with our website developer, and we're in the process of putting together costs to update the websites. Bob joined us as for part of that meeting, as did the chief, who's looking to do a complete redo for the police website and bringing back the colony page back under the township website. So departments, Greg sent out and is working with the departments on getting their updates. So that's underway, and we're expecting a cost proposal shortly. The Environmental Committee met. They're continuing with the work on their spring initiatives. On the 19th, there will be a recycling workshop presented by Liz Sweetie from the MUA from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on what you can and can't recycle, especially with some changes that happened for this year. So if you have a question about what you can and can't recycle and want to learn more, please come out to the Library of the Chathams on the 19th. Joint Rec did not meet because of the snow situation, but I did have a chance to speak with one of the trustees from the Chatham Athletic Foundation. They are accepting grant proposals for recreation facilities throughout both the township and the borough. I had sent a note with Bob, had a very brief conversation about it. Tom at our last meeting had stated that they were going to be giving us $100,000, which was something that they also gave to the borough for their Lumfield turf project. The $100,000 would not go to our future turfing projects. It would go to a current project, which would be potentially the lighting of Nash Field, redoing the lights at Nash Field. So that's kind of we'll be getting $100,000 for an immediate project, but we won't be getting $100,000 for the turfing of Lum, which is probably in about 5 years of the future. So I've made a recommendation to Bob that maybe we should get together with Rich Young from the DPW and take a look at some of our recreational facilities. And since they're offering up the opportunity for grants, we may be a little late to the game on this, but if we look at our baseball field in back of this building or other facilities that we might have that we might be able to identify, he said that we were welcome to submit a grant. So hopefully we can move forward on that.
Thank you, Tracy. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Those of you who are on the mailing list for the Historical Society probably have already gotten your February bulletin, but whether you did or you didn't, I'd like to call your attention to the first of this year's presentations by the Historical Society. They're always interesting and informative. The first one this year is a little bit unusual because it's going to be presented by Tripp and Nicole von Hoffman, who are on the, Tripp is on the Board of Trustees, and he took a sabbatical of a year to go sailing. So he's been sailing, long distance sailing, and this is a presentation on the whole experience. So that will be this Sunday at 2 o'clock here at the municipal building, probably in the community room at the back of the building, but the public is invited and it sounds informative. So again, 2 p.m. This Sunday, February 24th. Also, the community garden, I'd just like to repeat that plots are available for the community garden. The information is on our website, and the application form is there as well. And it's a great experience, a great gardening community to become part of. So if you're interested, check that out on the website and start thinking about spring. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I have a couple of quick things, and one is that I'd like to announce that I have reappointed Maureen Kelly to the Environmental Commission as the mayoral appointment, and I want to thank her for her past service in that commission, and looking forward to her future service to this town through Environmental Commission. Thank you, Maureen. She's here tonight. Thank you. And a couple other things that I want to mention that are, in the agenda we had kids that were supposed to be here and present to us, and our kids in our schools are doing a fantastic job, and just want to recognize a few of the teams here, just to mention their names. And the 7th grade girls team in Jersey STEM and wins the regional STEM engineering competition and advancing to nationals in February. So this is an amazing accomplishment. 4 of our 7th graders here: Aiden Bernstein, Sofia Malgarajo, Tanya Moulin, and Natalia Yen. I really congratulate them and for what they have achieved, and they made us all proud. And also a couple of teams I want to just mention their names: undefeated Chatham girls, 6th grade. 6th grade, it's, think about it. And basketball team wins the league title. And Kiki Rooney, Ryan Bolger, Lauren Tracy, Ella Von Deuce, Arden Alvarez, Ella Cruiser, Mia Samoli, Riley Cross, Avery Andres, Maybe Bogue, and Betsy Burton. So congratulations to them. They made us all proud as well. And one more team I'm going to mention. There are so many of them I can't mention tonight, so I know we want to go home. Today is the Valentine's Day. And Chatham High Paddle sweeps first ever New Jersey high school paddle state championships. Win both the boys and the girls division. So many names here. Real quick, I'm going to try. Aidan Buckley for boys, John Shehadi, DJ Carini, Matt Barnes, Jackson Singer, Mike Hoth, Max Eccles, Max Schaefer, and James Lapus. And second team, they have first teams and second teams for boys and girls. Second team, Connor McLean, Luke Chicheri, Max Bergson, Michael Winzel, Nick Peter, JP Allen, Owen Donahue, Kevin Scott, and Kevin Mahoney. And just moving to girls real quick. And first team is Heather Ivans, Alana Tegnola, Zoe Paris, Katie Evelett, Ella Walmsley, Erin Zucchi, Bridget Evelett, Peyton McGarry, Sydney Bergson, Quinn Bogue. And the second team of girls is Ellie Piper, Maddie Brasher, Kate McManus, Ella Romeo, Celia Reddington, Addison Hill, Anna Suter, Emma Goodhart, Grace Kneebone, Emma Parker, Kirsten Molinaro. Those are the members of the team. Congratulations. Great work. Keep up the grades up, doing all that work, but you got to keep the grades up too. So yeah, that's all my reports. Now, I'm opening the floor for citizens for any I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot. Okay. Sorry. Anything?
Nothing to report, man.
Okay.
And the
I'll go to
administration.
Chief first, then come back to you. Chief, anything? No? Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brief report. I wanted to thank the Township Committee for their confidence by selecting me as the Township Administrator. It is both a privilege and an honor to work with you, to work with our staff and our volunteers, and the professionals so that we can all serve the residents of the Township. I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to working together with all of us as we meet the challenges of providing well-rounded, cost-effective services to our residents. I also want to thank my predecessor, Tom Ciccarone, for his welcome, for his candor, and his graciousness during our transition. I literally asked Tom 104 questions, and he answered most of them. It's been a busy first 14 days, and I very much appreciate the many, many residents who have stopped by to say hello and wish me well. During our staff meetings, I have articulated the following goals based on the concept that we are in the customer service business. If 213 years ago, in 1806, the residents of this area did not think that they needed a local government, we might not have jobs today. Our goals are, 1, by any objective measure, be rated in the top 1% of all municipalities in the state. Number 2, be innovative. Become known as a laboratory of innovation for local government. Number 3, maintain our AAA credit rating. Number 4, use technology as a tool to help us work smarter. We already work hard. We will use technology to help us better serve our residents. Number 5, local government is both a job and a vocation for those of us that are in it. We spend most of our waking hours thinking about work or working. We should make sure that we savor what we do, and we should have fun doing it. In upcoming meetings, the Township Committee will be asked to provide guidance and policy decisions related to specific short, medium, and long-term goals for the Township. In closing, I want to wish the Township a happy 213th birthday. The Township was incorporated on February 12th, 1806. So we are 3 years older than Abraham Lincoln, who also shares February 12th as a birthday. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Chatham Township again to government. Albert?
Mr. Mayor and members of the Township Committee, this will serve as a status report on that matter known as State of New Jersey by the Township of Chatham versus East Park Builders, LLC. East Park was issued a series of municipal court summonses by John Rushke, acting as deputy zoning officer for East Park's allegedly violating its approved grading plan. The municipal court summonses have been resolved and will be dismissed. As with all municipal court summonses, none of the three deputy zoning officers consult with the Township Committee before issuing the summonses or proceeding to trial, accepting a plea, or dismissing the summons. In this case, I am providing this status report for your information because many residents have contacted you. However, no action is required of the Township Committee because dismissal of the summons is solely within the province of the Deputy Zoning Officer. The agreement achieves the following. 1, brings East Park into compliance regarding the lot grading plan for 11 Woodlawn Drive. 2, provides that East Park will tender a general release to the Township of Chatham, its agents, servants, and employees for all claims East Park may have against the Township that arose prior to January 23, 2019. That date was selected because that is a date on which a meeting was held with East Park to try to resolve this matter. 3, provides that the Township will dismiss all summonses against East Park related to 11 and 9 Woodlawn Drive without any assessments, fines, or penalties. Several public policies are promoted by this settlement. 1, the purpose of enforcement actions is to achieve compliance, and that has occurred. In fact, a revised lot grading plan has been submitted. 2, resolving disputes by settlement and not judicial intervention. In other words, the law favors settlement as opposed to litigation. In fact, the municipal court judge repeatedly encouraged the parties to settle. 3, allows the completion of a single-family residence where no work has occurred since approximately July 27, 2018, or a period of almost 7 months. During that period, a partially completed single-family residence has remained vacant, the interior unfinished, and site work, including full stabilization, at a standstill. This agreement allows this residence to be completed and the neighborhood to return to a semblance of normalcy. 4, it provides for proper drainage to be constructed. The resolution of these municipal court summonses was based upon my guidance to the Deputy Zoning Officer after a review of the matter, discussions with the municipal prosecutor, and a meeting with East Park and its representatives. As stated, this single-family residence since July 27, 2018 has not proceeded to completion. The interior was completed, but the exterior was completed, but the interior remained unfinished, and the site work, including stabilization and drainage, remains to be finished. Litigation before the municipal court or the Superior Court of New Jersey will not result in the single-family residence being completed and returned to normalcy. The stop work order that was orally lifted on January 23rd was subject to a finalization of a settlement or a resolution of the pending summonses, meaning that if there was no resolution, then the stop order, work order would be reinstated. That resolution has now been reached, and the stop work order has been memorialized in the agreement. As I stated above, the stop work order was issued on July 27, 2018, and then summonses follows. The summonses have not been tried at the urging of the municipal court judge to resolve the matter. As I stated above, the settlement is favored in the law. A brief word regarding the waiver of any assessments, fines, penalties by the municipal court judge. The judge would not have found East Park liable for $2,000 for each summons because, 1, that assumes that East Park is found guilty of each violation. 2, that all summonses, it also assumes that all violations would be assessed the maximum fine. 3, it also assumes that the municipal court judge would disregard the recent New Jersey Supreme Court directive that municipal courts have to exercise caution on how the public perceives it, namely not as a source for municipal revenue. The municipal court judge was seeking compliance, and that has been achieved. Lastly, speculation regarding what may or may not occur in the future is not appropriate at this juncture. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate it. Okay, and
Can we get an update from John as it relates to how things have been going on moving along?
Well, the construction basically, the contractor did start to do some of the interior work, which was expected because, he can do that. But, for site work, with the weather, with the snow, I wouldn't expect any work, within this week. I would expect, once the weather turns, work would start and just get the site into compliance and frankly, just finished. And so his expectation is that is to complete the site work within 60 days. It is aggressive if the weather doesn't cooperate, but if we start to get a mild March, I don't really see that being an issue.
okay, great. And before we move on, I just remembered one other thing that I need to report about the PSENG matter. We had, you didn't mention anything, right, Karen? Okay. And we have been, as you remember, we gave PSENG some time to get back to us with a plan, and I gave them 2 weeks, and they came back to us within the 2 weeks, and we didn't like exactly what they came back with. Then we decided to, as a team, meet with them, and Karen's leading that, and with John, and we're meeting with the PSENG representatives to see some of the disturbance that they created in some of the areas, and then we're going to continue that, that at least we're going to have some data to work with. And just so you know this, I mean, PSENG is willing to work with us, and I'm hoping for some kind of resolution within the next period of time, I would say within the next few months.
To be clear, the meeting that we're actually planning for within the weeks ahead is to address some of the dramatic runoff that we see coming down the right-of-way, not necessarily from above Fairmount, but from below Fairmount. And we've had conversations with a number of residents who live in that area at the foot of Pembroke, at the foot of Stonewick, et cetera, because from an engineering perspective, John has shared, you wouldn't go and have a topographical situation like that in your control, in your right-of-way, without providing adequate drainage facilities. And because there seems to be such dramatic runoff, we have to assume that there are drainage facilities that are not being properly maintained. So for us to go in and demand of PSE&G what they can do in their right-of-way is entirely out of the scope of the township. But when it starts to impact through runoff, through things that are entirely within their control, that is the matter that we look forward to addressing in the end of February, early March. Right, John?
Great, thank you, Karen, for your leadership on that. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're opening the floor for hearing of the citizens. And this is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about the issues which are not topics of scheduled for public hearings tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments for 3 minutes. So if anyone wants to come forward, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Maureen Kelly, 67 Mountain Avenue. Just want to address the issue that Tracy took off the agenda about the going out to bid for contracts on the maintenance of the athletic fields. Just want to state to all of you how important an issue this is, that we continue to use organic contractors. We don't want chemicals on any of our athletic fields. It's been well demonstrated how dangerous these are to our children. I am fully aware that maybe there might be some additional cost to doing that, but then, I put it to you this way. My kids are all grown, so it's not about that, but I care about the children in this community. And I even attended a Chatham Borough council meeting because of the work of my colleague, Kara Fieser, who's passionate about this, we've actually convinced the Chatham Borough people to take care of their playing fields organically. Because we know that the kids play on both fields, in the township and in the borough. So this is of utmost importance, and if you're worried about the cost, try explaining that to a parent whose kid comes down with cancer. So, yeah, we have to be reasonable, but this is of utmost importance, and I don't think we should consider any bids that are not all organic. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Any other member of the public would like to come forward? Nope? Okay, then I'm closing the floor to the public, and now we're moving forward with the next item on the agenda for the public hearing and final adoption of ordinances. Okay, so we have three of them on the agenda, and I'm going to start with the first one. Ordinance 2000-01, repealing subsection 11-1.6, Construction Board of Appeals. And I will read the heading. An ordinance of the Township of the Chatham, County of Morris, repealing subsection 11-1.6 titled Construction Board of Appeals of section 11-1 titled Uniform Construction Code, enforcing agency of chapter 11 titled Building and Housing of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Chatham. Now, would Albert, would you give us some background before we proceed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The township has in its ordinances its own Construction Board of Appeals. There is also a County Construction Board of Appeals, and anything that the local Board of Appeals does can be appealed to the County Board of Appeals. So there is a duplication of government there. For as long as many people can remember, no one has ever been appointed to this committee, so it's basically been sitting dormant. It's my recommendation to the committee, not only to this committee, but to other governing bodies, that the local Construction Board of Appeals be dissolved or abolished, simply because it's duplicate of what's done by the county. A reason to have a Board of Appeals is for uniformity on how appeals are treated, and by having a direct appeal to the county, the county is now overseeing not just appeals here in Chatham, but in the entire county, adding to consistency on how to approach appeals, essentially for uniform construction code items, or, for example, the Construction Board of Appeals also hears challenges to when a lawyer or an engineer charge too much to an escrow account, or at least the applicant believes it's charging too much. And the County Board of Appeals is staffed with individuals who have various disciplines, whether they're engineers, subcode officials. There's a mix that's required by law. So in essence, it's in Chatham, it hasn't been operating, and my recommendation would be is just simply to remove it from the code book.
Thank you, Albert. And now I'm opening to the public to discuss the matter, if anyone would like to come forward regarding this particular matter. Nope, then I'll close to the public. Then do I have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion in the committee?
I would just like to say that I'm thrilled that we're removing a layer of government for a change instead of adding one. This is remarkable that we've seen something in government that is dysfunctional, so let's just take it out. Congratulations to everybody.
Great, I agree 110% with Karen. And one layer of government creates enough issues, and think about two, and I wish we could remove the one too, but we can't. So anyway, okay, so any other discussions from anyone? Okay, Greg, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Selen?
Yes. All right, thank you. And next item on the agenda is the next ordinance is 2019-02 liquor license fee amendment. Now, I'm going to read that quickly. An ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 6 of the Township Code to amend the annual renewal fee for liquor licenses. So, Greg, if you don't mind, can you give us just some background?
Yes, this ordinance continues the process that has been ongoing for the past 7 or so years, raising the liquor license fee toward the maximum of $2,500. We're already at that max with the consumption license, and this ordinance raises the plenary retail distribution license fee to the rate of $2,255 for the calendar year. And if it be the committee's will to continue the process that we've been undergoing for several years, then we can, you can, at your discretion, adopt the ordinance.
Okay, great, thank you, Greg. And opening to the public for this particular ordinance. Anyone come forward? No? Okay, closing it. And do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Any seconds? Anybody
Second.
seconded? Okay. And Greg, roll call, please. I'm sorry, wait, any discussion? We have to discuss in committee? Nothing? Nobody? Okay, then roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Salen?
Yes. Thank you, Greg. And the next and the last one is the ordinance 2019-03 cap bank ordinance. An ordinance, I'm going to read it quickly. Ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. And this, Bob, if you don't mind, give us some background.
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual ordinance that's adopted by the Township Committee. It's adopted by most well-run municipalities. What this does is it provides the township with a reserve in case there's an emergency, such as a superstorm Sandy or some kind of an emergency where you're going to need significant funds. But this is a 3-year rolling average, so the Township Committee has done this before. 2016, whatever that reserve was, will come off the books, and 2019 will go onto the books, so that the Township Committee will just have the opportunity to dip into a reserve if so needed. And this is something that the ratings agencies look at when they do their credit reviews. So this is recommended to be done just as it's been done in the past.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bob. And public, it's open. I'm opening the floor to the public for this particular matter, if anyone will. Okay, closing it. And is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second.
Any discussions in the committee? Greg, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Salen?
Yes. All right, great. Thank you, Greg. And now we're moving on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is the routine items that may be passed by a single roll call vote. Any committee member may call for a separate discussion or vote on any item. Okay, Greg, would you read the resolutions, please?
Yes, minus the one that was pulled for separate discussion earlier. We have Resolution 2019-55, payment of bills, 2019-56, approving meeting minutes, 2019-57, approving executive session minutes, 2019-58, appointing board manager / TACO, 2019-59, designating insurance fund commissioner, 2019-60, appointing deputy zoning officer, 2019-61, releasing escrow balances, 2019-62, refunding hardship fee, 2019-63, refunding overpayment of taxes, 2019-64, authorizing RFP / RFQ for technology services, 2019-65, designating qualified purchasing agents, 2019-67, authorizing solicitation of quotes for colony pool concession, and 2019-68, appointing municipal housing liaison.
Great, thank you, Greg. And the consent agenda we just heard, and do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Greg, roll call, please.
Sure. I do have just a couple of comments. First of all, when we're talking about the request for additional technology, I think, Bob, you sent out a very cogent email today regarding the need to really shore up our technology services here at the municipal level because of certain nefarious goings-on, not only throughout our local communities, but also throughout the county and no doubt throughout the state and the nation. Right, and I think that's very important, and it's a very prudent thing to do to make sure we shore that up. Additionally, 2019-065 notes that, excuse me, that's not the right one. Yes, it is, 065 notes that Deborah King, our CFO, has achieved the rank of qualified purchasing agent, and this is something that we really shouldn't let go unnoticed because Deborah has been an unwavering factor here in our township administration. And as the Chief Financial Officer, I know we'll be looking forward to her consistency and being here and working with you. This is a feather in her cap to have achieved this extra qualification for her. And Deborah's not here for us to thank her personally, but just showing that she does take an ongoing initiative to improve her skill set to further the effective nature of our municipal governance. I think that's great. So congratulations to Deborah. We'll look forward to congratulating her in public.
Okay, great, thank you, Karen. Any discussions on the consent agenda in the committee? If none, Greg, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Selin?
Yes. Great.
And we still have that other item, the solicitation of quotes for lawn care.
So we may discuss it now. It may be the time right now, and let's do it then. If you want to take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I did want to pull this out. This was a subject, and this is partly for your edification, Bob, that was discussed with the Environmental Commission. It was something that was spearheaded by Kara Fieser and other members of the Environmental Commission, and brought to the forefront about how pesticides are affecting the youth on our fields. And it was a pilot program. I believe it started in May of 2018. And as we go out to bid, I would like to recommend, since I believe it had the full support of the committee last year for the trial, that I would like to recommend that we go out to bid for pesticide-free care of our playing fields and recreational fields. I understand that there may be some cost differential. I don't know what the cost differential was last year. I don't believe it was a lot last year. It was. Then hopefully when we go out to bid that, with other towns taking on the same initiative, that we may see some cost savings in a longer term contract. As Maureen had mentioned, Chatham Borough has a pilot program as well. We would certainly want to be in concert with all of our fields so that we don't have fields in the township with pesticides and fields in the borough without pesticides, and that we could work on a joint environmentally friendly solution to this issue. So that's really why I just wanted to point it out, is to talk about some of the backstory on this, and as we go forward to wholeheartedly endorse us maintaining this pilot program and moving it forward.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else from the committee would like to?
Mayor?
Sure, please.
I think the township took an important step last year in trying this as a pilot program, and I'd like to see it continued. Bob, is it feasible to, if we advertise for bids, to advertise for bids both ways, just so when it comes time to actually award it, we know what the extra expense is? I mean, I don't, it would have to be, in my mind, it would have to be a significant differential in the expense to tip the balance, but just in terms of good government, is that a doable process?
Yes, the quotes for the bid specifications could be constructed so that we can receive alternates. We can receive bids for organic or for the national organic whatever the last year's pilot vendor was, as well as for other options, so that the governing body can look and see what the difference is, if there is a difference, and then make an evaluation. So yes. Full disclosure, the company that was the lowest responsible bidder for last year is also the contractor that I have for my own house. So if they are awarded, I will be fine. I will be looking for another
Job.
No, not another job. You're stuck with me, but they will be. I will be finding another contractor for my own needs.
Okay, great. So, anything? Okay. So, I guess we'll proceed with getting more bids and researching it and act on the resolution as, okay. So now, we took this out of the consent and as an individual resolution. Would like to see if there's,
Is there a motion to
is there a
approve?
motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And second,
Second.
any discussions at this point? We discussed it, okay. Now, then, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
And Mayor Solen.
Yes. All right, great. So we're moving on to discussion items, possible ordinance or resolution items. We have 2 on the agenda. We're doing well, it's 8:10, and it's been 40 minutes so far. And let's see. The first one is the building limits and possible planning board review. And I want to open to the committee's discussion at this point. So anyone would like to discuss this item?
If I may, Mayor,
Sure.
I think I probably brought this up, but, well, that's not quite true. It's been brought up really repeatedly from the floor, from the audience. We've had people in various neighborhoods around town, Woodlawn Avenue most recently, but also Hilltop Terrace and a number of other neighborhoods around town, just people questioning the size and the impact of houses in their neighborhood. It's a complex issue. There's no easy answer. If there was, it would have been resolved up before this time. But it has also been brought up by the chairman of our Zoning Board of Adjustment in his annual report this past year to the Township Committee to ask that the Township Committee refer this question to the Planning Board to look at it and basically see if we are following best practices, whether there's something we can do better than we're doing now. I think that at this point, it's a more of a general concern than a finely tuned question. And for purposes of tonight's discussion, I think it's more to see where the feeling of the Township Committee lies, and if there is support for it, that we craft a more carefully worded resolution that could convey our direction to the Planning Board for them to take a look at that and get back to us.
Okay, great. Any other members of the committee would like to discuss?
I, with all due respect, believe that we've already asked the planning board to look at it, and we've done that at least over the last year. The planning board, John Rushke, some of the seasoned members of our planning board have actually gotten together. They've gone over certain building policies, and when it comes to taking a look at it, they've really actually done that. They've come back with the recommendation that changes for the sake of changes are not necessarily a good idea. We're going to run into a bad actor now and then. We're going to run into a house that we don't like the looks of now and then. But if you're talking about isolating matters as a problem and then trying to address an entire township because of isolated matters, I don't think that's good governance. I don't think that's good policy. I don't think that's good use of our volunteer board. And I also don't think that we have to go back and ask them to take a look at it again, having already done that. If we are talking about going to the planning board and charging them specifically with a lengthy process. We have to know exactly what it is we want them to address. If we are talking about extending setbacks, creating deeper front yard setbacks, deeper side yard setbacks, if we're going to go to the R4 and the R3 zones, which are our smaller areas in town, if we are going to go to those neighborhoods which are scattered across the township, if we're going to go to those neighborhoods and tell them we want to address the ability of homeowners to expand on their homes, and we're going to make wholesale changes, this has got to be not only take a look at it, this has got to be an extensive, it's got to be a carefully thought out, itemized idea of what we want the planning board to do. I think it calls for bringing in a separate expert planner. I think this is going to call for additional budget considerations. I think it's going to call for months and months and months of consideration. This is not just something that you're going to walk into neighborhoods throughout Chatham Township and do in the next 6 weeks and say that neighborhood has too many big houses, smaller lots over here. And someone's idea of a big house is not the same idea as somebody else's idea of a big house. So to take a look at it, as John Rushke will confirm, they did take a look at it. To go beyond that and to go and revisit this matter again is going to require, to my mind, a formal charge, an itemized list of things we want the planning board to address. I believe the township committee has to come up with it in their budget. I don't believe this is a budget item for the planning board. And at this stage of the game, I'm very curious about why we would charge a relatively unindoctrinated planning board to do this. With the many new members, some of the planning board members have either not lived in town, not served on the planning board, don't have a full grasp of what it means to be on a planning board, and now we're going to ask this relatively green committee to go forward into the neighborhoods and charge them with how we ask them to envision our township going forward as it pertains to the master plan, the sweeping document that defines our township from top to bottom. So I think, number one, this is probably poorly timed. Number two, if it's going to happen, I think it better be fairly itemized, extremely vetted, and extremely documented and well-funded. That's what I have to say about a possible building limits and possible planning board review. Frankly, to go across town and tell various homeowners what they can do with their property, to me, is something we had better be extremely careful about. If we're concerned about whether homes get turned over to builders and builders build new homes, you know, that's the market. The market will do that. And if all of a sudden people start building smaller homes because it's easier to maintain or they're having fewer children, the market will take care of that too. I don't think that this is necessarily a call for sweeping government review.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else on the committee would like to?
I'm interested in the follow-up because I believe that this was asked of the planning board by the township committee last year. So Karen, maybe you could explain how that
John will be happy to go over all of the
process
things that he
happened
did.
from John into the planning board, and then did it go from the planning board to the full planning board?
Yep.
Did it come back to the township committee? So how does that process work when that was requested of the planning board?
The charge really was to take a look at it. And as John will tell you, if you want to drive around and look at 10 houses that you think really do not fit, you're probably going to be hard-pressed to find 10 houses. Maybe you can find 5. John sat down with a number of members of the planning board and subcommittee, and they said, really, what is the problem? As we look across our whole township, probably traditionally R4 and R3 because they are the smaller lots, right? We're not getting into the 1-acre properties. And they did do some calculations, as John will say, you know, they went and did a look at maybe whether the frontage of homes had to be limited a little bit. Am I correct, John? But I will say that there was a cogent discussion among the subcommittee, and really to the idea of making wholesale changes to our township's planning board, to our master plan as a result of it, to any building restrictions was not called for.
And John,
did
could you
they-
speak to that? Because you keep getting referenced, so I'll give you a chance to speak about it.
I was not part of the subcommittee. They certainly consulted with me, you know, I guess I'm the guy with the boots on the ground that reviewed all the lot grading plans and can give details of what's happening. And the general focus was on Woodlawn in the R4, because that was one of the primary focuses. And some of the discussions, and one of the things that I laid out was specifically in the Woodlawn area, because that was one of the predominant areas that was looked at, is that it is a very unique neighborhood, because in that area, in the R4, more than half of the lots are non-conforming. They don't have adequate width, they don't have adequate area, and so it's a very unique neighborhood. And I think a lot of the planning issues that were occurring in that area, because a lot of the lots in the R4, the lots should be 75 feet wide, and they have a lot of lots that are 50. And in fact, what happened, and certainly on Woodlawn, is that some people had double lots. Now all of a sudden you have 50 and 100-foot lots, and that's what really was the unproportional issue over on Woodlawn. That it was just the nature of that neighborhood was not consistent with the R4 zone. It was really almost a zone by itself, the way it was subdivided historically, a very old neighborhood. And so, so when we looked at the R4, it was, the R4, that neighborhood is very unique compared to the other R4 zones, but the other R4 zones have more consistent lots. They're not so diversified, and so you're not going to see multiple widths of house, because the lot widths are more uniform. And so the focus was on Woodlawn. You know, and some of the discussion that occurred, or at least that I suggested, is that in the R3 zone, we did have a lot of complaints regarding lot building width. You know, that was an issue, and we did look at that, and there was a regulation that was adopted to limit the house width in the R3 zone, but that wasn't adopted in the R4, and that was one of the discussions that we had was regarding, you know, should there be a lot width actually imposed into the R4, because it's in the R3, it's not in the R4, but the general discussion is that when you look at the Woodlawn area, when you dissect that neighborhood and you start looking at the remaining lots that are double sides or corner lots and things, the regulation really wouldn't have been very effective at this point in time, because certainly the lots on Woodlawn are already developed. You can't go back in time. But a lot of the lots that are larger than the 50 feet are corner lots, and the corner lots have double front yards, and all of a sudden you have 2 front yard setbacks, and that reduces the size of the house. So the general discussion is that what happened in the Woodlawn area. It happened. There isn't a lot of lots that are left that are with that would warrant some regulations. But there is a shortfall, for lack of a better word, regarding the lot width. I mean, not lot width, but the building widths. We do impose it on the R3, that we don't impose it on the R4. There's discussions regarding the number 3 Woodlawn. That's very controversial. Because that concerns about how that was going. And some of the discussion is that lot is actually on the border of the R3, R4. So it's almost like a lot that's actually, having a small lot, the house right next door is in the R3, which is a much larger lot. So it wasn't imposing a regulations just to look at one lot versus an entire neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of momentum to start to look at that. And that was the thrust of the basic discussions. Again, I wasn't part of the committee, but I was asked for a lot of information, and I was feeding them information.
I think the fact that we are really delving into minutia when it comes to however many properties we have in Chatham Township and Green Village. We look at condominium communities, we look at more sprawling estates out in Lewanika and Green Village. We look at R3 and R4 when it comes to some of the older settled areas in the township. If we're talking about making sweeping changes to the master plan because of what we envision as a problem area on Woodlawn, to me that is a terrible knee-jerk reaction that should not be held at the lofty level of the master plan. That doesn't, to me, seem like planning board material. If you look at the actual reason for having a master plan, to look at minutia and to try and incorporate that minutia into a broad-based master plan is, to me, just a contradiction. When you look at other areas of our township that have yet to be developed, I know you had brought up Myersville Road at one point. The people on Myersville Road are living in great small houses that at some point in time they will probably choose to monetize. They've done it on the southern end of Myersville Road. Perhaps they'll choose to do it on the northern end of Myersville Road at some point in time. For us to sit there and try and lay down the law and prohibit homeowners from developing their homes, young families from adding on, or empty nesters from selling their homes to a builder, you know, the fact that the builders are the first ones in to buy these homes, whose fault is that? Is that the fault of the home seller? Is that the fault of the builder? Is it the fault of the real estate realtor community? It's the market. The market comes in and says, you're going to buy your home and you're going to sell it. And for us to put the brakes on somebody trying to monetize their home, to me, is not, I don't see the need for it.
Going back to John, when you had suggested that, I think the change in the R3 district with the width change in the width of the house that could be built on certain lots, it was by the square footage, the frontage of the lots.
Correct.
That was done in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there?
That time frame, yes.
And did it work?
Oh, yes, I believe it did. I believe it did.
So it was a good
There was actually a
solution.
number of homes on Dale, which initiated that, and I thought that parameter works very well in the R3. It kind of scales the house so that you don't have that one house is just, you know, the pink elephant on the block. It just keeps the houses more uniform and for that, you know, for proportional to the lots.
And since it's been in effect for so long, have we had any complaints or complaints from homeowners, or has there been any hardships, or?
There have been, I can't recall any complaints from homeowners regarding the width. There has been some applications to the Board of Adjustment for that particular, you know, variance for that, and off the top of my head, I can't recall, you know, if they were granted or a lot of times it's a unique situation regarding, you know, the situation of a lot, and sometimes that comes into a factor with variances. But it really hasn't been a very pronounced issue since it's been in effect. It's been an effective tool.
So it hasn't been pronounced, it's been effective. Why wouldn't we look to do this for the R4 zone?
Yeah, that certainly is a consideration that the board can look at. I think and again, I'm not the town planner. I'm not here, you know, I just, like, again, boots on the ground regarding what I see. You know, certainly, you know, that's, and there really hasn't been, you know, and again, I don't feel strongly either or, but, you know, over this time frame, we really haven't had any complaints or issues in the R4 zone either. It really hasn't come up as an issue with the R4, because the R4 was generally, they're smaller lots, and they are smaller lots, and you're not getting houses that are 80 feet long, 85, 90 feet, you know, your houses
The
are...
setback, the
the
side
set-
yard
it's
setbacks
just-
are strict and observed, and they have to
it-
be built into the floor plan of the house.
Correct. So they're just, you know, likewise, there hasn't been an issue regarding the width until now, until Woodlawn. That's where it came out, and it kind of jumped out at me when you look at those houses when they built it. It says, wow, that's kind of unproportional, and that probably would have worked well on Woodlawn to limit the lot width. But again, Woodlawn area is that R4 zone is just a very unique neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood, and the lots are not consistent. They're not consistent compared to the other locations.
And for the rest of the R4 zone, would this be something that, since it was so effective in the R3 zone, notwithstanding the irregularities in the Woodlawn neighborhood, but for the remaining R4 lots, is this something that would be as successful as what happened
Well, are
in
you
the
talking
R3 zone?
township-wide? R4 zones are everywhere, though. Are you talking about every R4 zone in Chatham Township now?
I'm asking whether what was applied in 2006 to the R3 zone, which according to John has worked successfully with minimal complaints, and limited the width of buildings, that's been a successful feature, would then be applied to the R4 zone. And could we ask our planning board, since Karen, you asked to narrow the focus, if we look at something just like that, since it's been successful?
Yeah, I did not do a detailed planning analysis. You know, I just did a snapshot looking at the tax maps and doing some statistics on the Woodlawn area. I didn't look, when I say I looked at the other R4 neighborhoods, it's simply looking at the tax map and saying, you know, intuitively you can look at it and say, okay, yeah, the lots are generally uniform, they're not inconsistent like the Woodlawn. So I think if it is something that be considered, it needs to be looked at more thoroughly. I did not do a thorough analysis.
Well, interestingly, when you talk about it being successful, and then you talk about the zoning board of adjustment receiving applications for waivers, which were granted, then that's actually having the zoning board say, okay, fine, you know, we've put these laws in place and now they're granting waivers to allow the restrictions to be circumvented. So I'm almost curious about whether it's successful or not, if people are looking at their development envelope and then they're saying we want to apply for a waiver and then they get the waiver. So they're actually going around it.
What I take away from this conversation is that there are some unanswered questions about this. And I have a lot of confidence in our planning board. You and I are liaisons to the planning board.
But they still are very inexperienced. There's a lot of inexperience on the planning board. For them to go forth and take on the master plan like this right out of the chute, out of their first charge as a board, I think is a hasty decision.
The planning board, by statute, has two areas of responsibility. One is to hear specific applications, but the other charge is to serve as the township's planning board and to advise us on planning issues. They are the proper board to look at something like this and give us some guidance. Now, they're a 9-member board. There are 3 members are new this year, so certainly a supermajority of that board is very, very experienced, and they also have the same professional staff that they've had all along, and they certainly have served us in good stead as well. So I don't have any big concern about the lack of experience by the planning board. I think they're a hardworking group of experienced and dedicated volunteers. I think that we had this conversation just about 12 months ago at the Township Committee level, and we unanimously asked the planning board to look at it and get back to us. And in fact, it was referred to a planning board over there, to a subcommittee, and the planning board as a whole never really had a chance to sink their teeth into it and to look at a planning board a subcommittee recommendation and come back to us with some kind of feedback. I think that what we should do so that the planning board isn't left trying to decipher what we want is to come up with a little bit more specific request.
I think it has to be immensely specific. It has to be highly detailed because we've asked them to take a look at it. They've come back really with inconclusive forward thinking because there aren't any really egregious matters that need to be discussed. That was the result of the discussions at the planning board subcommittee level, because there were not so many egregious, outstanding things that needed to be addressed at the lofty level of the master plan, that they decided that perhaps something more of a stopgap in an unconforming neighborhood is really all that was needed. But to go and charge the planning board with the same thing we did, as you said, 12 months ago, is to me really just a very circuitous route of getting back to square one.
No, I think
if you are asking them to do something deeper than that, then we have to have an exact itemized series of requests. And I don't think that we're going to be talking about our experienced planner. I think this has to come with the consultation of an outside expert planner from a third party, if you will.
I think you're getting a little bit of ahead of the situation at the moment. I think maybe that's something that could be given to us as advice from the planning board on how they see the issue. But what I'm saying is that I don't feel comfortable sitting here in front of the public and saying, don't worry, every neighborhood in town is protected to the best it can be protected. Everything is perfect, and we're leaving it the way it is. I think that it is very appropriate that we take a look at it and have the planning board tell us that, here's our our review up to this level of detail. This is what we consider is necessary, and here's why, and report back to us. That may be as far as they recommend to go, or they, in their expertise, may ask us to go further, or ask for a budget to go further. I don't know, but I'm just saying that I think that for us to do our job properly, I would like some of that kind of feedback from the planning board.
Okay, you know, I'm going to have my 2 cents on this. I agree with both of you. So I don't know how it happens, but I'll tell you how. I think I agree with Karen because we shouldn't tell the planning board to do sweeping changes in the buildable lots and bulk requirements and setback requirements. We shouldn't do that. So that is people's personal property. We have the rules and regulations in place. But at the same time, during the last, at least in my time here, and we see there are issues. And based on the data that we received from the public, and based on that data, and there are some issues, but those issues may not be because of the buildings are bigger or setbacks requirements are not the ones that we want to change or whatever. So there could be different issues, right? So I think it's fair for ask the planning board to give us some feedback in the form of maybe a little bit more formal report. But it's not fair to them to be very abstract. Tell them, hey, look at it. We have issues. Take a look at it.
And that's
not
already
fair
been
as
done.
well.
That's already been done.
That's right. So that's why I agree with you 100%. We have to be more specific. And you can't be very specific, but you have to be more specific than this. At least they have some guidance to come back to us with more questions, maybe some kind of report, or maybe some work session. I don't know. And I was going to say that's why they get the big bucks. They don't get paid, but, you know, unfortunately. So they don't get the big bucks, but they work hard. So, and you also, both of you are on the planning board, and I'm sure you can convey this message to the planning board. But our job right now, maybe you may want to take on to this one, Mike, to be a little bit more giving guidance to them exactly what we're looking for. And look, we all live in this town. We all live and love this town, right? So we want a good thing. We want good things to happen to this town. So we just don't want to change this town and drastically, but we want to address the issues as well. So I think that's the compromise that I'm going to
Albert,
propose.
from a legal perspective, when we are looking at what the Township Committee is going to ask the planning board to do, to make a formal request, what is your advice in that matter? Because this is not going to be, take a look at it. We've already been down that road, and I believe that we should charge the planning board with a formal series of tasks.
Well, it's certainly your prerogative. I think what I hear from this conversation is... what I hear from the conversation is that you may want to do this in steps. Perhaps give an initial charge, have some feedback from the planning board, take that feedback and go to the next step. That's certainly one approach. If you want to take a broader approach, you can follow that, but I do agree that there should be some resolution that is drafted by the Township Committee to give some guidance to the planning board as to what you're asking them to do. With the direction that the planning board report to the Township Committee, because I think that's part of what I hear here is that there was never that formal report back to the Township Committee. Because while the planning board is the planner, you ultimately make policy decisions. So I think there's a way to approach this, and perhaps working on a resolution that outlines the parameters is something that you may want to consider.
Well, then maybe the first step is to take whatever came out of the special committee and have that presented to the planning board so that the planning board members have the opportunity to understand what was decided within the special committee from the request from the township committee last year, so that if there's any discussion amongst what was decided in the special committee, they have the opportunity to have that discussion, and maybe that discussion comes back to the township committee to see what was proposed or what was not proposed, which I believe was what was expected to happen when this was originally asked last time. So maybe that's the first place to start.
Do we know if any of those special committee members are still on the board, or were they booted?
I think they might have gotten removed.
They got removed?
Whoever
Oh,
asks-
you weren't part of the special committee?
No, I was done.
Who was the special committee member?
Well, Kevin was
Who were
on it. Kevin was,
I don't know, I'm asking.
Kevin,
Billy, and Robert Nevin.
okay,
And they all
there you
got-
go.
They all get the
So
hook.
conveniently,
Yeah.
they're no longer on the planning board.
okay. So my
Oh, so
understanding.
so then I'm missing it. Sorry, I'm kind of new to the
A special-
process. How did anybody find out what was the special committee suggestions then?
They were on the planning board last year. They were not reappointed this year, so they're no longer serving on the planning board.
Now, conversation is going to the different direction now. So here's,
No, but
let's stay on the
Tracy,
track.
Mrs.
Let's-
Ness is asking if we can
That's
have
fine.
them return here with
No, no, no.
their findings.
What I was asking was, you spoke about the findings that the special committee had, and I don't believe they went, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if that special committee then reported those findings to the planning board. So at this point then, if you weren't on it, then nobody knows what the discussion of the special committee was. So maybe that township request to look into whatever's happening needs to continue.
I
And that
believe it
needs to be
was,
brought
it was
back.
really so, so inconclusive that changes needed to be made, that if it was one change to the code, that's fine, but the findings were literally so inconclusive that there was no reason to make a big change in anything that they did. They took a look at the building that was going on, that was under the purview of the planning board, and really decided that it was not incumbent upon the planning board to restrict homeowners' abilities to develop their own properties. There was,
Mayor, I'd like to.
Sure.
Following our attorney's advice, I'd like to take the opportunity between now and our next meeting to draft a resolution that tries to thread the needle between apparently a too vague request from last year and but the overly expensive and laborious request that Karen, raises the concern
well, it
about.
should be. If you're talking about homeowners, property owners' rights, you can't do it with just a broad brush. You really have to, understand what you're doing. This is people's properties. These are their assets. This is their retirement plan.
And I
This is
will
their
come back.
hopes for the future.
That's-
And when you buy a home and you think that this is what it's, you can't say, well, you bought into the R4 zone, it was this way last year, but it's no longer this way. Sorry about that. We changed things. So you can't.
Karen, I agree 100% with you. But we have to be more specific. If we're asking something from planning board to do for us, and then we need to be more specific.
Yes, I agree.
And we're not gonna,
100%.
we shouldn't be telling people, board and the planning board, hey, we want the setbacks changed. We can't do that. But we need to understand, and we all need to explain them that there were issues we need to address, and how do we address those, what the approach is. I don't know how the resolution is going to look like, but Mike is willing to work on it. So I think we need to further that discussion.
Yeah,
So
I would-
that may not end up with changing anything. It may end up with making some recommendations on soil erosion plans, and I'm just making it up right now. So, that could be some marginal things. So no one can think of changing the bulk requirements in a sweeping manner in this town. I mean, not as long as I'm the mayor. All right.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think we really need to define the scope of what we're asking them to do. Because in the absence of the scope, a lot of residents out there are just going to view this as restricting private property rights and what they can do there. I mean, you look at people in this town, to Karen's point, there's a lot of elderly people who are looking to monetize their properties and they move out. And if, they hear, and we sure as heck should promote this as well, this resolution that comes before the committee, if you're able to do it before the next meeting, on social media, every which way, because there's a lot of folks out there, senior centers should know about this as well, who are going to realize If you're restricting my private property rights and what I can do with my property and sell it to a builder, I'm gonna have an issue with it. So, this is, if your concern was it wasn't done properly last time, or we could have been more specific last time, then let's do that this time.
That's what I'm willing to try to do, and we can have that in front of us at the next meeting, hopefully.
All right. Are there any more discussions on this matter? Okay, I think, in my mind, we know what to do. So you will work on that, Mike, and we will further the discussion. And next meeting, we'll discuss further. Should I act on it?
No, you've reached a consensus, so
Yeah, okay.
that's fine.
Okay. So next item on the agenda is the last item, a discussion item, is the Colony Summer Camp. And I'm open to the committee discussion first. Anyone from the committee would like to discuss?
I'd like to preface this,
Sure.
if you will.
Sure.
So we put back to committee the Colony Pool Camp Committee, and they're all back there tonight. And they have done a terrific job putting together this proposal. We have sat down with Lauren Hauser, who is the pool manager, and reviewed this with her. We've given Bob a little bit of a discussion about it. We were going to have a discussion earlier tonight about the administration aspects of this, how this would actually be administered through the town. But Lauren was very excited about it, about fully using the potential of Colony Pool. There was a lot of work that went into this. There were a lot of meetings that went into this. And I'd really like to invite Dorothy Lee and the other members of the community of the Colony Pool Committee to come up and walk through this presentation to give credit where credit's due. And if you can hold on to that so she can go through and explain it, then I'd like to hear any feedback that you have before we start to move forward. And this is Dorothy Lee.
Thank you, Dorothy.
I'll try to keep this short. So we put together a proposal with our committee together. We're very excited about it, so just wanted to walk you through this. So our mission is to utilize what we already have, the tennis courts and the pool, and to create a casual and fun and affordable summer camp for our members and the Chatham residents. Some of the benefits that we see is obviously potential income stream for Chatham Township, and additional incentive is to drive membership enrollment, and also adding employment opportunity for the Chatham, the teenagers, the residents, and it will also fill the void of a recreational camp in Chatham that we, the residents, have been asking for. And just to go on to the next page, so what we're proposing, this camp, is first grade through fifth grade. It will be 6 weeks of camp. We lay out the weeks over there, and you can, so the commitment is 2 weeks, and then you will get to choose whichever week that you want. 4 days a week. Ideally, we would like it to be 9 to 12. It will have tennis, swimming, arts and crafts, sports game. It will happen rain or shine unless it's, severe weather. We have to call it, so we'll reserve Friday as like a rain date or a severe weather date, I guess you call that. We will be drawing the tennis instructor from the Chatham tennis team from Chatham High School, and also the swimming instructor we will draw from the Colony Pool instructors as well. So this is all within Chatham and within what we already have. We have talked to 2 people who we think will be great for as a camp director and a co-director. The camp director is Chloe Blanchard. She grew up in Chatham. She's an NYU graduate, and she's an elementary school teacher in New York City right now. She also used to run International Ivy Camp. She was one of the sites director, and she very energetic, young, and I think she has a lot to offer for this camp. And the other person is Frank Wolf. He is currently a security guard at CMS, and so a lot of parents and a lot of kids already know him. He also coaches wrestling, softball, and baseball. He lives in Madison, but because he works in Chatham, so I think it will be good for him to have him. And also, he will be he's also a former police officer, so he was telling me that his background clearance is very high. And so I also think that he would be really good to keep the kids safe and also be responsible for the sports game, and and Chloe can be in charge of the arts and crafts and the whole organization of the camp. So we will also be planning on hiring a head counselors from tennis instructors, lifeguards, swim instructor, as what we already discussed, and some counselors in training. And then go to the next page, just talk about pricing a little bit. So just to look at our competition, fishing game right now is $275 for 5 days a week. The Mr. A Cam is 4 days a week for $265, but that's per 2 weeks. And the center court is also $275 for members. So I look at it, so what we're proposing is to charge $150 for members and non-members $200 right now. The rates per hour, as you can see, is very competitive compared to the rest of our competitions. So we think that we have and I'll show you on the next slide that we will also be making money at this rate too if we can reach the number of campers that will be coming. And so far so good. So on the next page, we'll show you the just some of the big number by week. So if we have 50 campers, which is we're hoping to achieve 10 campers per grade. The weekly income is about $750, assuming full membership. We put in the fixed cost here per week, $373. Variable cost, which is arts and crafts, snacks and things like that, about $1,000. The staff cost would be about $2,700. And then so if we can keep that model, we will have a profit of about $3,400 per week. And if you go to the next slide, just to give you a snapshot of, so for the entire summer, if we have 50 campers and be able to run it for 6 weeks, we will actually end up netting $20,000 profits for the township. And then if it's 4 weeks, that will be $7,700 for the township. So if we can maintain those numbers, it will be, definitely driving income. So if we cannot get 50 campers, I think our break-even number will be 30 campers. And obviously, we need to look at it by week. We don't want to have 2 first grader and then everyone else is fourth and fourth grader. So we would need to look at by week and what the makeup of the age of the kids. So if we do 30 kids, and let's say we can only afford to run it 4 weeks, the enrollment is not that high, we will still be making about $2,500. So that will be our break-even number. So that's pretty much what I have, and we're very excited about it and hope that we can continue with this proposal. And what is next is that we do want to, in order to run this camp successfully, we do need to get the ball rolling, and we need to start registration by the end of this month, which gives us a couple of weeks. But everyone know that, we wanted to see what's going to happen with this meeting, and then so that we can continue the next step of all the administrative stuff, of all the logistic stuff, and make it happen. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. That was a huge effort on the part of our largely new advisory committee with Carol Valla, Jacqueline Jacoban, Shannon McCarty, who couldn't be here tonight, who's working on some of the food vendor issues that we have at Colony, and as well as John Tunney, who helped us do a site visit. So if you have any questions, concerns, or...
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I don't know who answers them or whatever. We talk about a void of recreational camp in Chatham, and you list three popular ones here: Fishing Game, Mr. A, and Center Court. Of course, it doesn't include, Broadway Boot Camp or any of the arts camps going around, or Fairmont or Madison, New Providence. Did we look at those as well in terms of what do they charge, or how do we define the void, as it were?
No, I did not look at Fairmont. I don't think that I didn't look at it, but last time I went on to Noe, I did not remember seeing the price is listed on there for someone who's not a member. Even with Minnie saying their price is not listed, I had to ask a friend. I did not look at those, but then in terms of recreational camp, we used to have an SBS camp that was very successful.
I don't know about that, that's kind of why we got rid of it.
It was like long time ago.
When it was promoted.
Right.
20 years ago.
These other camps, I don't know the exact number, but I think that Noe and the Fairmont Country Club camps will be a lot more expensive than this price range.
I don't think Fairmont Country Club has a.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
And how much is it?
I think it's $375.
And you have to be a member?
Yes.
So for $60,000 or $40,000,
Yeah.
then you could go to
And
camp for
Colony is
$345 a month.
500 for the, 525 for the year.
So
There's
to
other
join,
camps
so
out
to
there
join
too.
the
There's
private
Broadway
clubs,
boot
you
camp,
would
there's
need
other arts
to.
camps.
Yeah, I
mean,
just
there's-
think, to Kurt's point,
It's-
when you talk about a void, is there really a void? But,
Yeah.
maybe for this particular purpose, just for.
Yeah, to have just a general rec camp, like many other towns do, and Bob gave me some of the information from some of the towns that he's worked in with the rec camps that they provided, and also Kurt spoke about specialty camps, that we do have a couple of specialty camps that pop up, because Bob was saying that one of the things that actually almost overtook some of the July registration in the towns that he worked in was that they were able to go ahead and provide then in those 2 weeks, those dead weeks in August, they were able to provide specialty camps, and those got even more registration. We unfortunately don't have the bandwidth to be able to offer that. So I'm looking at this as more of a pilot program to bring back a rec program like pretty much every other town around us has, and not have people having to join Minnesink or join Fish and Game or join Nellie or join Fairmount and have those added costs that can be anywhere from $5,000 to be a member all the way up to $30,000 to be a member.
But one of the goals of this is also to potentially increase membership to Colony?
Hopefully, that would be a goal, but it's open to non-members and members as well. So I think it's always a goal for us to try. I know that you tried to do that for many years, and putting things together and putting events together to try and drive membership, since it is a cost that we subsidize, and we should, because it's a community service. But it's to really fully utilize that site and to bring back something that today's kids would be interested in. It was interesting when we talked to Lauren about it. She's like 50. She's like, I think you might get more than that, based on the number of people who request this and call her or speak to her at Colony and say, don't you guys have camp? So she seemed to think that that number was low. But we wanted to try and be conservative, show a potential profit, but then also go all the way down to the end and do it with 30 campers. And I think we should really look at this as a pilot, so we can learn from it and see if, and the true test, Kurt, is really going to be is if we're able to promote this, because we didn't promote the camp in the last couple of years. We didn't promote the tennis program, and that wasn't able to be run, and then people were like, wait a minute, I didn't even know there was a tennis program. If we're able to promote it, then the residents will tell us whether they want it or not.
I think
But
at
we
one
don't want it to
point,
be a money, we don't want it to
Right.
be a money loser.
no. But at one point, we were actually, I don't know whether it was an overabundance of children from out of town. But at one point last year, the couple of years preceding the closure of the camp as it existed, we were actually having an abundance of kids from other towns, not necessarily Chatham Borough, because of course, many times we don't even consider that another town, but for New Providence and Berkeley Heights and places like that, there were people who were coming to our camp because it was so cheap. And that was the drawing point for them. They didn't have to go to, their own recreational camp in New Providence. They were coming here because it was cheaper, and we were subsidizing recreation facilities for kids from outside our town. So we would want to make sure that we are running this camp for kids from our community without wanting to sound too insular, but I do think you know, the programs we put in place for our rec department should benefit the kids for our community.
And then as it relates to the,
Yeah, we agree with that
as it
completely.
relates to the fees, how do we come up with 150 and 200 versus 200 and 250? I mean, a lot of these other folks where they have non-members, it's dramatically, it's $100 or more, so to speak, than the regular member fee versus $50.
So the member fee is, I was looking at the rates per hour of see what is comparable to these 3 specific camps that I was looking at. And in terms of the non-member rates, the reason we wanted to try to keep it low is because this is the first year we're going to be doing it. And we do have, what?
A promotional rate.
Pretty much, pretty much. And then, you know, it's definitely, I want to be very cautious for the first year. I don't, you know, I would like it to be 100 kids, but I don't know. You know, so I think that that's why we try to keep it attractive.
I have a couple of questions, and who's going to run this? Is it a
So,
camp director we mentioned here,
yeah.
Chloe? Okay, so
Yes.
day to day, she's going to run it?
yes.
Okay, just want to understand. And,
Under the guidance of Lauren.
okay,
Yeah,
that's what
we will
okay.
Right.
Who's
have
going
on
who's
site.
to manage her?
Who
Uh,
manages Lauren?
I mean, if
Five,
we're employing
yeah.
someone, are we employing this person? Like, she will be a township employee? Is that what it's going to be?
Yeah.
I think so,
Okay.
right?
A seasonal township, yeah.
Just like the lifeguards.
Part-time, or is it going to be like agreement, like in a contractor? Or will that, will
No,
that be a contract?
Well, they would wind up being an employee of the township.
Employee?
Yeah, they would be, you know, they would be
Part-time.
a seasonal employee of the
Okay.
township. So it would be you know, it would be whoever is employed for the camp.
Okay.
So, you know, the instructors and all would be seasonal employees, similar to the common pool.
Okay.
The lifeguards and to the badge takers.
Now, more than the money it makes or loses, it's important that it shouldn't lose money at all. But my bigger concern, or maybe more important question to me is, what are the risks here? So how much risk that we're taking? And at that, you know, I'm just thinking myself, is there an opportunity to outsource something like this and make no money, maybe a little, but just outsource someone else do it for us? And so we put all the responsibility onto somebody else's shoulder. Is it even possible?
You know what, Bob, maybe you can address that, given your experience with camps.
Wow, put me on the spot.
I told you in the beginning of the meeting.
The answer is yes. You know, you could do something like that. We could also take a closer look at this and vet it so we can look at it both ways. You know, I think that the committee has done a commendable job on presenting, you know, presenting this concept. I would like to meet with them over the next 2 weeks and just flesh out a couple of things, because there's the front end of this proposal, and then there's the back end of this proposal. And one of the things that I would also like to do is, we're a member of the Joint Insurance Fund, so I wanted to have the Joint Insurance Fund just take a look at this and see if there's any liability. I do not believe that there's any liability the way that this has been proposed, so that would be good. There would be no premium increase. But there are a couple of things that we do need to take a look at. We have gone to, and this is my terminology, we have an automated payroll system now for all of our employees. So we just need to figure out how do we give access to the camp director so that they can input the timesheets for the staff, so that we can pay everybody on time, and then you know, just a couple of other things like that. I'm sure the numbers are accurate, but let's take a look at them. There's just using some of the numbers that I did on a quick and dirty analysis. We were using on average $9 an hour for the counselor. So I don't know what number you were. We were coming.
I put in
we were coming
10.
close. What's that?
I put in 10 for the counselors.
Okay. So we're coming in. We were coming in close, but just I wanted to make sure that it's all locked down. And you know, My recommendation is that ask all of the questions now, and that we come back on the 28th, and we have a fully belted and braced, analysis for the township committee.
When you and I first met, one of the questions we addressed was whether you had ever had experience in shutting down a program that was just cost inefficient. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and think that this might not work, because it takes optimism to be entrepreneurial, and I appreciate all the work that you've done with it. One thing that created a firestorm in our town, as you well know, is the abrupt cancellation of certain programs. When you look at how far in advance you need people to commit, if folks come in and they commit for the first 2 weeks and then decide that a friend of theirs has a shore house for a week and I'm going to pull my kids out for this week, and the next thing you know, you've gone from 45 to 15 kids or something like that. Are you actually going to send the counselors home for the week that we don't have enough kids to make this functional, or for the 2-week segment? All of a sudden you find out you've got, great start and everybody's great. You've got your coaches and your counselors in place. And the next thing you know, it levels off, and maybe even towards the end of the summer, everybody gets camp fatigue and they just want to stay home. What do we do?
So right now we put in a deadline, the registration deadline for the campers is for April 30th. So by that time, we should know if the camp is a yay or nay. If they want to change their I used to run the SBS enrichment program. There's a it's not a fine print, it's big print that said no refund.
Okay.
But if you are going to swap another week, we'll be able to accommodate you if we have room. So, those needs to be listed out on when they, what we're envisioning is using Community Pass to register. So they will have to, there's these are the disclaimer, and you need to put your initial on it and sign off. So when, people do, when we did the enrichment program, they would be like, my son doesn't want to do this anymore. And it's like, we already committed to the instructor, but, it's at no refund, I'm sorry.
Right.
And I think we did learn from the summer camp experience last year. We did leave kids without paychecks. We left the tennis instructor without a paycheck. And we did discuss this, so that all of a sudden, people who expected 3 to 4 weeks of employment were now out of luck. And that's not fair. So we did discuss this in terms of the pricing and the planning, that the instructors and the counselors and would have to be paid for whether we decided to run full 4 weeks or full 6 weeks, because that's really what's fair. They've committed to us for the summer, and then we need to commit to them.
Right. And also I'm sorry,
Yeah,
with the deadline of April 30th, we should by then know how many counselors we are hiring. Right now, the number that we're working is a 4-on-1 counselor to camper, which is a really, really good number. So we should know approximately how many campers how many counselors we'll be hiring. So, so that would give us a little indication. Is it a no-go or a go? Because we also wouldn't run it if it's less than 30 kids, or if we don't have enough kids per grade, to make it a fun experience.
If you have 30 kids the first week, or it's 2-week segments?
Yeah, we're going to let them choose which 2 weeks.
It is going to be a 2-week
But
segment.
not 2 consecutive weeks?
It doesn't have to. They can choose which 2 weeks they
So
want.
it's a minimum of 2 weeks to
Yes.
sign up?
Yes.
And they can be consecutive or non-consecutive?
Right.
But if all of a sudden, you've got a full boat 1 week and you're going to put these kids on the beach for a week,
I think we need to, I think that if the deadline is April 30th, we will be able to tell the parents, and it's all about communication, based on my experience with the enrichment program. It's funny, you tell the parents, I cannot run this anymore because I am short 10 kids, and these parents find friends. They do, and then if we really cannot find it, then we cannot run it that week.
Can you provide some color in terms of how, I guess, Ms. Blanchard and Mr. Wolf were identified as the lead director and co-director?
I'm sorry, what was the question? How did I find them?
How did you pick Chloe and Frank?
How did I find them? Chloe Blanchard used to babysit my kids, and I watched her grow up, and her little brother is a friend, and I know that she used to run International IB Camp. That's why I reach out and say, and because in the summer she comes back.
I'm not familiar with that camp.
International IB Camp, they have one in Melbourne, one in, I don't know where, I know the one in Milburn. It's a pretty big camp. They do have different subjects that they teach, like coding and not necessarily sports, but they have different activities. It's actually a pretty big and expensive
And
camp.
the site director, the camp director equivalent, is that what it is?
Yeah, she is in charge of the
whole thing.
whole site, yeah. And Frank from CMS, he was recommended to me by, what's her name? The woman who was going to run the camp last year.
Oh, Cheryl Mercer.
Cheryl Mercer. She interviewed him last year because she was interested in running the SBS camp, and he was interested in the camp and thought that he would be a great match. And just really thinking about the safety of the kids because he was a former police
Along
officer.
those lines, Bob or Albert, would these counselors need to go through background checks as well, I assume?
Yes.
Yes, if they're over 18, they would. There's a different type of background check that you would do if they're under, if they're
I assume most of these
17
kids are
or
probably high school kids, though, probably.
under. What's that?
I assume most of the counselors would be high school kids.
Or even younger, no, but as far as the administrators or the upper level people, we don't take somebody else's background check as good enough for us. We
Yeah.
do our own.
Yes.
And then if anybody turns 18 during the camp cycle, this is something that Lauren and I had discussed about the
Lifeguards.
They would have to go through a background check once they turned 18, if they turned 18 in July or something like that.
What
Yeah.
if it's really bad weather for a week? I mean, really bad weather. Do you cancel? Do you keep the kids' money? You keep paying the children? You...
Man.
I know, right? Look at me. I'm such an optimist. I'm sorry to ask you that, but do you have real inclement weather? I mean, when you talk about the SBS camp, I mean, it was nice to have the use of that facility in the event of really crummy
Yeah,
weather.
right now, I ask people from Mini Sink, because Fishing Game has an indoor room, but Mini Sink doesn't.
Yeah.
So the people at Mini Sink, they run the camp rain or shine. If it's raining, as long as there's no thunderstorm, they're
Right.
allowed to use the pool and use the tennis court. So we'll run that when it's just raining. If it's just bad, severe weather, what do you think? I guess we can issue a refund.
Yeah,
and-
we'll have to see. I mean, depending on how severe it is over the number of days, we'd have to evaluate that. But Lauren, I don't know, in the course of managing the pool, have you ever had such a string of horrific
Never had
weather?
4 days straight. We've had 2 days of rain, but because we may have access to possibly tents and stuff to keep the kids under and continue to do things, the pool's open as long as it's not thunder and lightning. So we have days where we run swim team practices and swim lessons and it's pouring or it's drizzling, and parents still bring their kids because the pool's open. We're not
Right.
closing for that reason. Our lifeguards are hired, they're on site, we're open. So we would try and run it as much as possible without canceling unless there was imminent weather that would endanger the children.
Right.
I'm sorry, Lauren, I didn't even see you back there. Hi.
We did put
That's
in...
Lauren Hauser, she's the pool manager.
We did put in 2 tents for us to, in the budget, so that we can purchase 2 tents. We'll put it by the snack area, so that they, if it's drizzling or even too sunny, that they can have a shady area to do some arts and crafts, have a snack, and hang out.
Well, thank you for putting this together. I just, looking to Bob as the expert, so to speak, in terms of running camps and all that. I mean, this, to your point, this looks good on paper.
Yeah.
It's the logistical stuff that could be a potential nightmare, I suspect, and figuring out how things are gonna work, this, that, and the other. So I guess you'll get together with them and
Yeah,
work out the
I-
kinks and come up with I would love to see, to your point, the numbers and, how we're coming up with these numbers and making sure. I don't think it should be, I think you said it's preferred, how you said in the beginning, potential income stream. It shouldn't be a potential, as far as I'm concerned. We should make it a prerequisite that we want to make money off of this. There shouldn't be a handout to folks. And to that end, I'd like your thoughts and ideas of increasing the fees from 150 to 200 or something to be a little higher, as it were, so we can make sure we're making money out of this. Because the last thing you want to do is have a successful year this year at 150, and the next year you're like, you know what, let's increase it X dollars, and people were, up in arms because you've increased it $25, $50, whatever the case. So if you can just consider what might be a more reasonable price. I know we want to keep it cheap to get people in the door. The last thing you want to do is get people upset next year when you're up in the fees and all the rest.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that, that we get together sometime next week, we go through it. You know, this has got good bones, and then we look at some of the other issues, and then we come back to the Township Committee on the 28th.
That sounds like a plan, and Dorothy and Carol and your entire committee, it's a lot of work, thank you, and I think it's a great idea, as Kurt said. Devil is in the details, and, you know, make sure we have the less risk, not losing money, and Tracy and you will, I'm sure, figure it out, and with Bob's help.
And Bob, you just include like a marketing budget as well. I don't know if that's what's included in here. Or
Well,
not.
out of all the money we're going to make, we make a marketing budget.
Well, we need to market
Have
this to
Lauren
make sure we
sign
get it.
everywhere you look.
So,
Well, if you promise not to tell anyone, we have a color copier.
A copier. Do our
And
own
Greg gave me
copy.
the template for Lyra.
hanging all over town.
That's fair. I'm kidding.
Anything else from the committee members?
No.
Anything well?
No, I just want to thank everybody from the
Yes.
Colony Committee. You guys have
Thank
done a
you.
tremendous job. I want to thank Lauren for coming out to meet with us and being as excited about it as we are. So thank you very much.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And now, the next item on the agenda is the hearing of the citizens and any matters, anything we spoke tonight. Anybody would like to come forward? Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. Happy St. Valentine's Day. I hope you all have done your chocolates in the morning. Otherwise, you have some makeup to do. My name is Rez Estevez. I live in the township on Southern Boulevard. This pertains back to the building limits conversation. I'm pleased to hear that the Township Committee will assert its supervision of the Planning Board to give further guidance. I wanted to put a couple of notes, and I will be concise before the committee. One, obvious solution of instructing the board very specifically to stick to the existing code in letter and spirit with a message of no exemptions, variances, or waivers. That will mitigate a lot of the issues. That will diminish the arbitrary nature of its operation. And if there's a need to revise zoning codes, there's an existing process to accomplish that, rather than conducting a high-cost, high-effort assessment throughout the entire township based on the R4 rating. There should be also review and consideration to future impacts. Sending a message to developers that somehow they're not welcome in the township will have an unwelcome chilling effect. Part of what the township offers through these redevelopments is the ability to create refreshed properties that are very attractive to buyers who want to buy a ready-to-move-in, snappy, renewed, or new construction. That's incredibly attractive. That keeps bringing in people into our township. That's also the basis for the refreshed, frequently ratables for the township, and has maintained our ability to keep operating without increasing property taxes. I don't want any changes that is going to chill the ability of the township to continue to operate without increasing property taxes, and largely we've based that on refreshing properties through developers and then bumping up the ratables fairly based on what new construction or improvements have been made on lots. So we should have an eye towards that future and not really cut our noses to spite our face. So I want to make sure that we underscore the message of small, effective, low-cost government. I don't want to see increases in my property taxes at all, and I don't want to see an expansion of the role on the zoning board and given broad space or empty space to fill with arbitrary action, and certainly to not engage in a very large review that's going to cost money and with an unclear outcome as to the effect or benefit to the township. No tax increases. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Estevez. Anyone else would like to come forward? Okay. Then we're closing the floor to the citizens, and do we have executive session matter? No? No. Okay. Okay, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Roll call, please, Greg. Or all in favor?
Let's just say aye.
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 What time is it? 4 minutes.